Hi guys, welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you as every week from the south of Germany, from Munich. Today is Saturday, it's the 19th of October 2019 and I'm just so happy to be talking to you about some yarn, some knitting and anything to do with these two things. I am recording this episode on a whim, as apparently I do every week now. I just got home from a lovely sort of breakfast, brunch, coffee and knitting date, and I figured, well, why don't I just talk about what I've been making to you as well, and that way you may have this episode to watch over the weekend if you are not attending Rhinebeck, which everyone seems to be doing. So I'm not going to Rhinebeck. We can have a little not going to Rhinebeck party if you want. I will be spending my weekend knitting and also maybe possibly buying some yarn. I should say I have been buying quite a bit of yarn, some of which I will show you today, some of which just arrived in the post, and guess what, you guys, I haven't even opened it yet. So that is something I will do later. I will look at all the yarn and then show it to you at some point. Anyways, if you're watching for the first time, welcome. I really hope that you will enjoy this podcast, and I know there have been some new viewers and subscribers of the podcast, so hi to you. And if you're coming back and maybe have been watching for a while, maybe even years, thank you so much for coming back. So today, again, it's going to be short on content. I have a couple of things that I've worked on. Apparently, I've just shifted my way of podcasting in the way that I used to always talk about all my whips, and I used to actually work on all of my whips every week, and now I just don't. So I'm just going to show you a couple of things today. And I have a finished object. So this ties in very nicely with our informal Stephen West / Westknits knit along, which we're doing in the Ravelry group. It is super easy and uncomplicated, and you can just join in if, like me, you're kind of on a Stephen West pattern train. If you want to just show us what you're making, link to your projects, talk about yarns, talk about patterns, feel free to join in. Also, I have this really weird hair thing going today. Sorry about that. Nothing I can do about it. Anyways, what does the Stephen West knit along have to do with this? Well, of course, I finished my eyeball shawl, which is a pattern by Stephen West. Let's try to show it to you the right way around. So it is huge, and I can't really show it to you super well, but there it is, you guys. There it is. So you can see it's a massive eyeball, and then I've been knitting on these white parts of the eye for ages, which is why I couldn't really show it to you, because it was all scrunched up on the needles, and now it is not. I'm just realizing it has a stitch marker attached to it, which is quite funny because I just wore this out in public. But yeah, there it is, and you can see it's pretty much a blanket. It's pretty huge. It's very nice and drapey. I love it. In terms of knitting it, I did really enjoy it, but I will say that the brioche part is supposed to be quite a bit longer, but I had two problems. I was kind of running out of the white yarn, so I couldn't have done a whole lot more than what I've done here anyways. But more importantly, I think just because there was a lot of stitches and there was a lot of weight on the needles, and for some reason, this brioche really just broke my wrists. I had quite bad wrist pain from knitting on this. I spent the better part of 3 work days, like every day after work, just knitting on this brioche border, and my hands and my wrists just didn't take it very well. So I decided to just bind off, and I think it really doesn't matter how many rows of brioche there are, and this shawl is plenty big, so I'm done with it. Super happy about it. The yarn that I used is yarn from Pickles that I picked up in Oslo specifically for this project, so I feel like I'm doing very well in terms of knitting up my stash that I got in Oslo. This is their Pickles Merino Tweed. It's not super tweedy. Probably the most tweedy part of it is this center, which is this brownish gray color. And then the other two colors, they're not super tweedy, but I did quite like the yarn. It is very thick, so it didn't feel like a fingering weight yarn to me when I was knitting it, but that just made the shawl extra big and squishy, and yeah. So that is my eyeball. Very, very happy about this huge thing. I actually did block it a little bit just to help with the shape. And it was a fun knit to do. It's a lot of knitting, but it was very mindless, which made it a lot easier. And I could potentially see myself knitting another one day. What's also really cool is I blocked this as I usually do, and blocked it out on our living room floor. And Kai, my husband, came in, and he's usually not very impressed with my knitting. But with this shawl, he was really impressed. He thought it was really cool. And I think it's just, this design is so graphic, and I really like it as well. And then when you just wear it, you don't see that it's a massive eyeball. It's just a cool combination of colors and textures, and yeah, so I think it's just a really cool design, and it's a little bit different to most of the knitting shawls that you can see out there. So yeah, very happy with this. Also very happy that this is done. I think I cast this on the night that I returned from Oslo, so it was a very purposeful yarn purchase and project, and now I'm just happy to have it done, and it goes perfectly with my new coat. I got a new winter coat, which is this sort of burgundy red, which, yes, that was a stupid idea because pretty much everything that I knit is purple and pink, so nothing goes with anything anymore, but that shawl goes with it very well. So yeah, that is it for my finished objects, and moving into works in progress, I have 3 to show you this week. First up, I'm not even sure if I ever showed you these socks. I really can't remember. But these are some socks out of a commercial yarn, so they qualify for our One Ball with Love knit along. In case you're interested, just check out the Ravelry group for that. And I should say the Ravelry group is always linked right underneath this video, as is a link to my project pages. So if you have any questions about my projects, my needle size, my yarns, colorways, all of that, you can always find that there as well. Anywho, this is some commercial sock yarn. I bought quite a few balls of Lana Grossa sock yarn back, I think, when we were on a honeymoon one day. I was, like sitting in paradise, as you do, watching my husband play beach volleyball while knitting, and I decided to get some sock yarn, so I bought a couple of balls of sock yarn back then, and they have been pretty much hanging out in my stash. I think this is the second pair that I'm actually knitting up. So this is Lana Grossa Meilenweit Vierfach in the Monty series and colorway 1705. And I just bought this because I think the colors in the, what is this, ball cake thing are just really pretty. And then when I started knitting it up, I wasn't really sure about it anymore, but I have kept on knitting with these, and yeah, so I have a first sock done. These are just some plain vanilla socks with a garter stitch fish lips kiss heel, which you can achieve by just knitting the fish lips kiss heel and knitting the knit stitches and knitting the purl stitches. So yeah, the first sock is done. These will be for a friend of mine. I also got this super cute stitch marker that my friend Marion gave me. I think they're from Knitography, and she got them in Oslo, but I'm not 100% sure. First sock is done, and with the second one, I'm also quite far, so I've turned the heel, and I would say 2/3 down the foot, because these are from my friend, so they don't need to be as long as I would have to knit them if they were for me. So this is just a plain pair of vanilla socks, and yeah, I just take them around whenever I have some like travel knitting, if I'm meeting someone, and I just knit on these, and I'm very looking forward to having these done. And you know what? This colorway is growing on me. In the beginning, I thought this was super ugly, to be honest. I don't know why, but I thought the colors on the skein were so pretty, and then when you knit it up, I wasn't really sure about it. But now I really quite like it, so that's good. In terms of what I'm doing, I'm just doing my usual cuff down sock recipe. So I'm doing 64 stitches over on a 2.25 millimeter US size 1 needle. Next up, you know, I barely ever knit hats, but I don't know why. I've just been craving knitting hats. I think just because I want something quick and easy and instant gratification. So I caked up a ton of my DK weight yarn. I barely have any DK weight yarn in my stash. Specifically sort of like single skeins, indie dyed, merino sort of yarn. So I just did a bit of a yarn caking session the other day, and one of the yarns that I caked up is this yarn that I've been wanting to knit with for a while because it was a Christmas gift from Kai. We got this yarn when we were in Vienna about 2 years ago, and this is the Uncommon Thread. It's one of their it's a superwash merino cashmere and nylon base, so it's very, very luxurious. It's called Lush Worsted. So I don't really get the difference between DK and worsted. I mean, don't tell me. I know that there is a difference, but they're pretty close. Anyways, so this is the yarn. It's the Uncommon Thread, and the colorway is called Rocky Horror, which I think is really cool. So I just decided to cast on a hat, and what do I do with hats? I always just kind of go for it and just hope that it will fit. So as you can see, I'm still working on the ribbing. I haven't decided if I want to do like a single brim or if I want to fold it over and have a double brim. At some point I will just have to put this on a bigger needle and see if it actually fits my head. I think I cast on 100 stitches, and I'm just doing a 2x2 rib on a 3.5 millimeter US size 4 needle, and I'm planning to switch to a 3.75 once I finish the rib. I have a couple of ideas in terms of what I want to do with the main part of the hat. I'm not really following a pattern. I'm thinking something just slightly textured. So we'll just see about that when we get to that. But this is where we are now, and look how pretty the yarn is. This is just a plain 1x1 rib, and it's just so pretty and very soft. And no, it doesn't go with my new coat, but I don't care. I love it. So essentially, this is what I do with all of my hats, because I don't see the point in swatching for my hats, and every pattern has different sort of needle gauge stitch counts and all of that. So I just cast on, and if it doesn't work out, I will just rip it out and start again with more or less stitches. I know, not very professional, but here we are. So yeah, that's where we are with that. And then the only other project that I've really worked on is my Stephen West Mystery Knit Along, which is the Starflake shawl. So I'm going to be showing you the shawl, including most of Clue 3, which just came out yesterday. So if you do not want to be spoiled, this is your warning. Look away, skip ahead 5 minutes, because I will be showing it, and I am done with Clue 3, sections 4 and 5, I think, and I'm working on section 6 right now. Okay, so you've been warned. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. So the Stephen West Starflake shawl uses 2 colors of yarn, 2 skeins of fingering weight each color. So I've started the second ball of my main color. I have a little bit of my main color first skein, I should say, left, and it's kind of blowing out the camera. It's not that bright. I mean, it's bright, but it's not that bright. But they were quite different in terms of being indie dyed yarns. You know, if I were using these for a garment, I would have alternated skeins, but I'm not doing that for a shawl. So once this got pretty tiny, I just decided at the start of a new section to start with the new skein, new cake, I should say. I'm still on my first cake of my contrast color, and both of these yarns are Malabrigo sock yarn. The pink is called Light of Love, and the grayish color is called Pearl. And these are both using stash yarn, which I'm very, very proud of. All right, so let's show the shawl. I have put it onto a bigger needle, but this thing is just massive, so it's still pretty hard to show. But yeah, here we are. So you can see it's changed a little bit from last week. Last week was this brioche section, and now I have, I think section 4, you do these wings. So you do these short row stripy sections, which were really fun. The next section, you pick up these little gray blobs at the end of each tip, I guess. So if you can see the star shape here. And now I am actually working the last section, which is over all of these stitches. So these rows are super, super long, and I can't really show it to you very well, but this is where we are. And I've seen some photos of the finished clue, and it's just genius. I mean, I'm still really enjoying it. I think this is my favorite clue so far. It's just been a lot of like little things that you're doing. And I don't know, Stephen West is just a genius, like to come up with these things and make them work. Very, very happy with this. I'm still super curious to how this shawl will actually look once it's done. I still can't really figure it out. But yeah, so that's what I've been mainly working on since yesterday, since the clue came out. And yeah, I feel like, I don't know why, but somehow I made pretty good progress. So that's where we are on the Stephen West mystery knit along, and I will put it away now, and then hopefully everyone else can join us again. All right, so that's it in terms of my actual projects. Before we move on to what I have received in the mail, what am I wearing? I am once again wearing my boxy, which is a sweater pattern by Joji Locatelli. This is the fingering weight version, but I used Wollmeise lace yarn, which is a very light fingering, and one skein, I think the skeins are 300 grams, and one skein was more than enough to knit the sweater for me, for my size. If you want to know more about the modifications I did, because I did do less stitches, I did make it a little bit less boxy, even though it is still a very boxy sweater. Just check out my project pages or go back to when I was actually knitting it in terms of the podcast. I still wear this thing so much. I will say that I love the yarn. It is starting to pill a little bit, and it's, I don't know, I don't usually have the problem where I catch my stitches on everything. I kind of do with this one. It's probably to do with the gauge and maybe just the yarn structure as well, but all in all, it's still holding up pretty well, and I think this is my most wearable garment that I've knit this year, and I just love wearing it. It is just so comfortable, but at the same time, it looks good enough to, like, for pretty much any occasion you can wear this, or I can wear this at least. Yeah, I'm just really happy with the sweater, and I will knit more. You know that I have plenty of yarn in my stash, which is destined to become boxy sweaters. Yes, I'm kind of turning into Amy of the Stranded podcast now. But yeah, we'll see when that happens. I could definitely see myself knitting another one pretty soon. All right, so now I'm just going to talk about yarn that has found its way into my mailbox. So if you're not into haul type videos, then feel free to just leave us there and join us again next week. You won't miss a whole lot. But yeah, here we go. And as usual, everything that I've shown you and will show you is not sponsored. I'm not getting anything in terms of payment, free yarn, whatever. If I ever do get like free stuff to show you, I will always be very, very clear about that. So yeah, just have to have that clear up front. So essentially what I've been doing is I've been Brexit shopping, because Brexit is coming apparently. And you know me and my love of yarn from the UK, and sadly, well, who knows what's going to happen with that. Certainly I'm not really inclined to pay like customs and stuff, and it seems to be very, very unclear about that right now. So I'm just buying yarn when I can. So one thing that I wanted to get, and I'm really sorry, I got this from a UK-based website, and I can't remember which one it was anymore. But this is yarn that I've been wanting to get for ages, but they have a web shop. But last time I checked, shipping the yarn from their web shop straight to me the shipping was quite expensive. But this is Studio Donegal yarn in their Darney base, and oh my gosh, I've been wanting this yarn for so long. Very, very excited about this. So this is 100% lamb's wool yarn, and it's got, I mean, it's not really tweedy, but it's slightly tweedy, I guess. And this is just, oh, this is scrumptious. This is a non-superwash fingering weight yarn, exactly what I like. I would definitely say that this is a woolen spun yarn, and oh my gosh, I'm so happy to have finally gotten some. I feel like it's quite affordable. It's just a matter of finding it and having it shipped. That was an issue for me in Germany, at least. So I got myself 3 skeins of this beautiful red color because, yeah, I think it was called something like deep red or deep, I think it was called deep red. It's shade number 8805. They don't have that many colors, so I'm sure you can find it if you're interested. And it's coming out a bit lighter on the screen, but it's this beautiful sort of burgundy, I guess, color, and oh, love it. Very excited about this. We'll turn it into a sweater sooner or later. Can't wait. And another thing which I actually have had for a while, but I've just been waiting for, I don't know, the right moment to show you, I guess, is something that I actually saw in Oslo, but decided not to get in Oslo because I had bought that much yarn and I was traveling with only one suitcase. But at the Oslo Strikker Festival, one of the vendors there that I've heard about before but never like really looked into was Kid Couture. So they're from Copenhagen. There you go. And what they do is they essentially sell kits. So they have these really, really cool designs, and then you just buy the kit from them, and they will put it together in your color scheme and size, and you get the whole thing as a kit. So that was something that wasn't really interesting to me for a long time, so I never really looked into it. But then when we saw the beautiful samples that they had at their booth in Oslo, it was just something that I really thought, well, I'm not going to look into it now, but I want to go back to that and essentially at some point order it because they're from Copenhagen, so it's pretty easy to just get it shipped and it's not a huge deal. So the other day they had a huge sale, I think because they were moving spaces, and I was like, well, this is happening sooner than I thought it was, but I will just go and get the one kit that I know that I've been wanting anyways while it's like 30% off. So this is the box that you get it in. It's really, really cool. And when you open it up, you basically get everything that you need like this. So I just think that's really cool. So the design that I really just fell in love with, and the only thing I couldn't decide on was the color scheme and whether I wanted it to be a cardigan or a sweater, is this design, which I saw in person, and it's just beautiful. It's all over colorwork. It's called Buggen cardigan. I assume that's how you pronounce it. And like I said, they have this as a cardigan, which is steeked, and they also had a sweater option, and I really, really couldn't decide what I wanted. But in the end, I decided to go for the cardigan because I don't have that many cardigans, and that way it's just a little bit more easy to wear. So this is actually the color combination that I chose as well. They had like, I think 6 or 7 maybe options. They also had a beautiful mustard yellow one with mustard yellow and pink, and I feel like I need to have that at some point as well. But I went with the more wearable option for this one, and so you get the pattern, which I'm not going to give away. I guess you get this sheet with what is included. You can also order the needles and everything with it, which I didn't because I have enough needles. But you get the pattern, you get like a chart, which again I'm not going to show. You get the yarn, you get I think a needle for weaving in the ends, you get a label, you get stitch markers, and you get the buttons, which is good because I can never pick the right buttons. So they have, like, each of their designs seems to be connected with a certain yarn. So you can't be like, I want this design, but in the alpaca yarn. And they have quite a bit of alpaca, which wasn't that interesting to me, but this is in their wool yarn. So this is it's just called merino. It's an 80-20 merino nylon blend. It's a fingering weight yarn, and it seems pretty soft. It says distributed by Phil Colana, so I assume they are the makers behind this yarn. And it's just a really, really wearable, nice yarn from what I can tell. So I got the yarn, I got 4 gray balls, I got 4 black ones, I got the contrast blush pink. And then also in this sweater is mohair, so I got 2 balls of this kit mohair and silk yarn, and they're 25 grams each. And I wasn't too sure about it. I wouldn't have, made this myself, but the kit or the design comes with some glitter yarn as well. So the glitter is knitted into the design. Again, not something I would personally choose, but I feel like all of their designs are more like a little bit like artwork or like designer clothes. They have something special about them. So I'm just going to follow what they say and add this crazy glitter stuff as well. So that's the yarn that I got, and then I haven't really unpacked this. Should we open it up? I'm usually not a big kit person, but I just thought this design was so cool. So here you get a sewing needle, and there are bulb stitch markers, which I'm just not going to show you, and a little label, which I think is a pretty cool touch. What else do we have in here? We have some sweets. That is awesome. Oh yeah, and in here are the buttons, which I'm just going to leave in here for now. So I just thought this concept was really cool. I really wanted to try it. This sweater is going to challenge me a little bit because it's a bottom-up sweater. So you knit it bottom up and then stick it. I'm kind of tempted to turn it around and try to knit it from the top down, but I'm not sure if it's a good idea. So I'll have to just look into that more closely once I'm doing it. Or maybe I will just follow the pattern. I don't know. I just don't like the idea of, knitting the sleeves and then knitting the body and then putting it all together. But I'm not really sure why it is such a big deal for me. So maybe I will just treat it as a chance to do a construction that I usually don't do and follow the pattern. Also, what I think is really cool is the fact that you choose your size when you order the kit, but all sizes seem to cost the same amount of money, which I think is a really cool thing to do in terms of inclusivity. I was worried because I was kind of in between sizes and I didn't really know when I was going to knit it, and I don't want to order a kit for a size that maybe in a year I won't wear anymore. So I got the bigger size. I got the size medium, and I was kind of worried that the pattern would be just for one size, but it seems to be for all sizes. So that's really cool. So yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting thing and brand, and something that before the Oslo Knitting Festival I probably wouldn't have really thought about. But now I really like this idea. And I will be honest, like, this is not a super cheap thing to do. And I'm not going to suddenly start knitting all of my sweaters out of kits. But I just thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, that's it in terms of what I have to show you this week for my, what's it called? Stash acquisitions. And that's pretty much it for the knitting content. Thank you so much to anyone who gave me their input on the mystery fiber that I talked about last week. There were some really good ideas, and actually I've kind of been playing with the finished skein a little bit more, and I'm kind of getting more used to it as well. I think maybe now that it's fully dry, it's not soft, but it's even better. A lot of people suggested huge projects like carpets and or like blankets and huge cardigans and stuff, which won't work because I only have a limited amount of fiber. But the general consensus was to do something that was more outerwear suitable. And I agree with you there, so that's probably what I will do. Some people suggested sock yarn, so I've also thought about maybe spinning part of this as a very high twist sock yarn, and then maybe even doing some singles with the rest. Some of you suggested like doing like a whole ton of sock yarn and knitting gift socks, but this is crashy and this is the sort of wool that I wouldn't give anyone as a gift because most people I think wouldn't like it. But anyways, thank you for the suggestions, and I will mull it over and figure something out. The only thing that I don't want to do is, like, I like this fiber and I will use it and I will try to make something that makes sense, but I'm not willing to invest in like either equipment to comb it. I have the option of making Rolex because I have a blending board, but like my heart isn't really set on this, so I don't want this to be like a huge milestone project. Like every now and then I like to undertake a big spinning project and mix fibers and do all of that, but I don't think I'll be doing that for that. But anyways, thank you for your suggestions. Also, someone suggested that I really should do socks out of my BFL mohair yarn, which I showed you last week. Actually, it's right here. And you know what? I may actually do that. If I had spun this specifically for socks, I would have even put in more twist because I felt like I was putting in a lot of twist, but it's still not super high twist. But I have so many socks, and I think nothing really can go wrong. If worst comes to worst, they will wear out at some point. But I may actually turn these into socks because that was a really good idea. Like the first time I read that comment, I was like, oh, I'm not sure. But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? That is actually a really cool idea. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the nitty content of this week's show. And besides that, really, I don't have anything interesting to tell you. This week has been a very, very, very long week. And pretty much Monday to Wednesday, I was just working and sleeping and working and sleeping, and it was quite intense. So whenever I can, I try to take it a little bit slower. I had a couple of slower days, which were nice. And yeah, I will continue to try to somehow keep up some kind of work-life balance and more importantly, work-knit balance. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Fall is in full swing now, which is amazing. I'm loving, wearing all the shawls and socks and sweaters again. I mean, I wear them all the time anyways, but now it's actually appropriate and no one looks at you funny when you come up like all bundled up in knitwear. So that's amazing. And like I said, this weekend I'm just planning to knit my heart out. It was really funny because I was talking to Kai on, I think, Thursday, and I was like, this weekend I'm just going to knit. And he's like, you do that every weekend, Julia. But even more so this weekend, I'm going to be vicariously following those of you who are at Rhinebeck and hopefully having the most amazing time. I will just be at home. I'm thinking about even casting on more things. Not that I need it, but I just feel like casting on a whole bunch of stuff and just hanging out with my yarn. And yeah, that is going to be my weekend before we have a quite busy weekend coming up next week. So about that, I'm not sure if I will have the possibility to record next week. It may be 2 weeks until I'm back with you, but we will just see about that. If you're ever in question and you want to know what I'm doing, see what I'm up to, the best place to follow me is always on Instagram, which you can find me there as the Happy Knitting Podcast. When it gets stressful, I kind of stop posting there as well, but I at least do a couple of stories every now and then. And if you just want to see some snippets of just daily stuff and life and so on, you can always find me over there. And if you're not into that, do whatever you want. You do you. I don't really mind. I try to be very, very open about that. Like, I know a lot of podcasters, they're constantly like telling you to follow you here and subscribe and click the bell and all of that stuff. And I just feel like, I'm sure you can figure it out. If you want to subscribe, and if you don't want to, that's fine. Just do whatever you want, and I'm just giving you options as to where you can get your Knitty content. Anyways, I would love to see you over in the Ravelry group if you're joining into any of our informal knit-alongs. And to those of you who have been asking why don't we do proper knit-alongs anymore, I'm just taking it slow at the moment. I'm just trying to spend my energy where my heart is and not just take on a bunch of projects and things that, I don't know, that just tend to sometimes get too much. So that's why we're just kind of pausing the whole giveaways and knit along thing right now. But I think we still have a platform going where if you want to knit along with other people and do all of that, you can definitely do so over there. All right, so that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you have a lovely weekend. I hope you have a lot of yarn to keep you happy and warm and keep you knitting. So until I see you again, thank you for watching. Happy knitting. Bye.